Gary, I think one of your most impressive achievements is the way you've thought through imagination as it applies to a whole range of things. We've talked about that some. Would you please talk a little about your personal epiphany, what you were reading, what you were thinking about, and how you've started to apply imagination to so much concerning leadership?
Well, Gleaves, imagination is this concept. There's probably no more important concept or thought in my life right now. I've been thinking a little bit about imagination for years, trying to figure it out, because people that I would respect, like Edmund Burke or Russell Kirk and others, would talk about imagination or moral imagination, the wardrobe of moral imagination. It never made any sense to me. I'd struggle with it. When I think I'd get a hold of it, it would disappear. It would disappear again, and I've been lost. And this happened for years and years and years. So whoever listens to this, I think the hope, or keep hope alive, keep at it, because it's something that will come maybe eventually. The moment I got it, though, and I've been already writing my children's novels, and I've been writing for a number of years. But I was reading Robert Penn Warren's All the King's Men. Again, an act of imagination. That wonderful book is. And I'd read it once with a group of students. It was a wonderful book. And then I read it the second time. And this is a lesson in what C.S. Lewis talked about when he said they never wanted to hear someone say they had read a book, because if that means there's no hope. He'd rather hear people say you never read a book at all than only read it once. And so you really have to read books, particularly important books, and I'd say All the King's Men is one of those, more than once. The second time through it, I got to a point in the book, and there's a scene in the book where Willie Stark, the corrupt governor, is attempting to get a doctor, a very virtuous, kind, generous doctor, to run his hospital. And he won't do it. He refuses and refuses and refuses, because he refuses to be around corruption. He refuses to be around anything that Willie Stark is a part of. And Willie's the lead character of the book is a guy named Jack Burden, and Jack Burden is a lifelong friend of that doctor's, and he works for Willie Stark. Finally, Jack says to Willie, "I'll get the doctor to do it." And Willie says to him, "How are you going to do that?" And Jack says, "I'm going to change the pictures in his head." Think about that. I'm going to change the pictures in his head and get him to do something that he refused to do otherwise. He's not going to threaten him. He's not going to beat him. He's not going to bribe him. He's just going to change the pictures in his head. And what the pictures that he changed is, he went to him and he said, the doctor, and he showed the doctor where his formerly wonderful, virtuous little sister had actually touched corruption and entered into an affair with the married Willie Stark, the governor. That changed the man's world, seeing that picture. And that taught me, and then there's others now that when that hit me like a bolt of lightning, I remember the excitement of going into the next class and talking about this with my students. And then we'd see it throughout the book. That is a powerful book about imagination. It is an act of imagination. And what that set me on was this path of thinking about the pictures in our heads. And I've come to the conclusion that all of our lives are governed by the pictures in our head. Napoleon is the military strategist, the ambitious emperor type politico. He didn't say cannons rule the world. He didn't say politicians rule the world. He said imagination rules the world. I actually for a while thought I made that line up, but now I discovered it's his. But it's true. Imagination rules the world. It rules all of our worlds. Whether we're leaders or we're followers, we're mothers, we're fathers, we're kids, we're teachers, whatever we are is determined by the pictures in our head. If we're happy, if we're sad, if we're depressed, if we're well-adjusted or ill-adjusted, They're all determined by the pictures that we have in our head. And those pictures come from the people that we're around. They come from the books that we read. They come from the plays that we watch. They come from the television shows that we watch, the video games that we play. It comes from all of that. And so when you think about leadership is an act of imagination. Good leaders are imaginative. Good leaders can imagine different scenarios. Different leaders can imagine what's going on in followers' heads. They can imagine them. Adam Smith talks about this in his theory of moral sentiments. And he says how we get to we can't actually feel what other people, when they're hurting, when they're sad, what's going on, but our imagination allows us to imagine ourselves in the same position. Leaders have to do the same thing. If we're going to move people, we have to understand what's going on with them. We have to understand what's going on in their heads. We have to understand what's going on in their lives. And the only way we do that is to imagine. Every entrepreneur is a man or a woman of imagination. You can't create a new company if you can't imagine a new company. It's all about the pictures that we have in our heads.